like Cloud9 at 3-3. It's not necessarily because they got that much worse, it's just that the growth of the other teams has continued, and C9 has to keep up if they want to remain dominant.
And even in the game we just watched, it was the early game that was the problem. That was when Team Liquid were making the moves. Like you said, Impact struggling in the laning phase, but having a very solid performance as the team fight showed. Maybe they can change that up a little bit this time. They are going to be going up against a Nori. When we flashed the jungler stats on the screen, you saw that compared to Reignover, he has lower gold at 15 minutes, but he has a higher KDA by the end of the game. So he gets himself involved with things, dies a bit less. Kill participation for both of them around the same.
Yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see if this is also a champion pool thing, because the Rek'Sai is right in Reignover's wheelhouse, and Olaf is still a good champion, and he wasn't necessarily targeted. And those are the things that I feel like he found the most success on. Not to mention, Nori's never really been a Lee Sin player, neither has Reignover. So that's kind of what you think of sometimes when you are subbing out a former All-Star like Reignover or former League MVP, is you think maybe it would be a champion pool thing, but it could also just be about trying to mix things up for a different style of jungler. If Nori wants to be more comfortable with the hard carry style, whereas Reignover was kind of best-in-class facilitator for players like Huni back in the day, could be a potential tweak.
Well, the bans this time around, Kennen, Syndra, and Kassadin banned away by Liquid. They do not want to go against Sneaky's Kennen again. LeBlanc, Galio, and Zac banned away by Cloud9, as Caitlyn is locked in first and foremost for Liquid, looking to put Piglet on the ability to carry.
Yeah, this was banned by Team Liquid in Game 1 when they were on the red side. It is probably Piglet's best champion of the split. You can see his stats for the summer after 3 games played on that thing. Look at that 80% kill participation. Everything has worked around Piglet when he's been in these games. So I would not be too surprised if we got a more supportive jungler out of Nori, even though I just made that whole spiel about him playing aggressive, because he did play a lot of Ivern towards the end on Phoenix 1, should be comfortable on that. Not to mention Nunu is quite good right now, even if we don't see much of him in the LCS.
And both of those two synergize really well with Caitlyn. Blood Boil for movement speed and attack speed. We know what Ivern bushes look like when you're stacking them with Caitlyn headshots and traps. It creates this impossible siege scenario. But it's Elise and Varus locked in for Cloud9, and Liquid decides to go with Rek'Sai.
Yeah, it's just the same player with or different player, same champion.
Yep.
For Team Liquid, we're going to get to see a Nori's take on Rek'Sai Renekton too. So more things similar in this game, but Galio is banned this time, so the team fight counter will not be as potent in this one.
Well, same song, different singer for the jungle in Team Liquid today in Game 2, but it's going to be same song, same singer in the top side, as you're going to see Lorlo on that Renekton. Again, awesome performance in lane last game, but remember, things fell apart in communicating where he needed to be for those team fights. The rest of the team found themselves in spots where Lorlo was like clearing waves in top side, and he was saying, wait a second, guys, I'm not there. He has to TP into the fight. By the time he does, Tahm Kench is already dead, and things have gone to hell in a handbasket.
Exactly, and if you're looking to find cleaner team communication, a lot of times conventional wisdom would be to stick with the same players. But now it's Piglet and Lorlo with 3 different players than we saw them play with last week. They have talked about Piglet being the shot caller for the team, so if he is giving the direction, technically it wouldn't make as big of an impact as you would have otherwise, but I think it's still going to be a really tough job against a team with so much initiation potential already with Kled, Varus, and Elise.
Yeah, Kled being locked in on the side of Cloud9. Going to be a capable fighter there in the top lane, but at the same time, remember, Impact fell incredibly behind in laning phase. He was on Galio, he was on something with a lot of inbuilt CC and tankability, so he could still be useful. If Kled falls super far behind, he's not nearly as useful as the Galio would be. Cloud9 has got to be looking out for that this time around. Look at the target bans from game number 1 coming out here in the second part of the ban phase. 3 for 3 so far, as Slushy and Conquan's picks of Talia and Tahm Kench are banned away by C9, and Jensen and Smoothie's picks of Lucian and Blitzcrank banned away by Liquid. They're saying, we saw your MVP, we saw your runner-up, we're not seeing either one of them again.
Yeah, 6 of the champions that were played last game are banned in this banning phase. Some of the champions that weren't banned, though, are immediately into the pick phase from the first game. As you can see, Caitlyn and potentially Orianna sneaking into this one. It would be a power pick here for Jensen, and they too will last pick their support, something the Team Liquid did last game. What I like more about this is how generically powerful the Orianna can be, especially in Jensen's hands.
right. You mentioned it in the game number 1 draft phase. Orianna doesn't exactly have somebody that you have picked into her and you go, oh man, that's a really bad matchup for Orianna. She just handles everything.
Yeah, the Syndra is one that's banned. And in the past, it actually has been Corki. Corki just received some buffs in patch 7.12, so there's a chance it can be a decent matchup because of the wave clear and the all-in potential from the Corki, as long as he doesn't get hit by the shockwave. And that's what Slushy's going to go with.
Slushy picking up that Corki after the magic damage changes to him. His auto attacks are now 80% magic damage. His skills are all magic damage. There's some Sorcerer Shoes and a Void Staff on there. It's like having armor pen boots for an 80 carry. It's very, very scary. As Zyra will be locked in, the support for Team Liquid. So much damage on this team, Jat. A Renekton in the top lane, a Zyra on support, new Rek'Sai in the jungle.
Yeah, they had some team fighting issues last game. They said, how do we solve that? More damage, please. Yep. But less peel for the Caitlyn. There is not too much that can keep Piglet safe other than himself and maybe some timely roots from Conquan's Zyra.
And you talked earlier, you said Piglet, 80% kill participation when he plays this champion. It helps when the team revolves around him, makes plays around him. That just doesn't seem to be in the game plan this time around. It's not Caitlyn-centric. It's everybody's doing their own job. Everybody's doing the damage, bursting the enemy team down. It is up to Piglet to make sure that he's staying alive and he's staying safe, keeping his head on straight.
Exactly, and now Smoothie getting his Thresh, another thing that was banned in game 1. So C9 getting to do some of their comfier champions, so to speak, and really looking forward to seeing how Inori can match up coming off the bench here when game 1 did end up fairly one-sided.
I am excited to see Smoothie on another champion with a hook and contracts again on the Elise because we saw the setups in game number 1. The cocoon into the hook, the cocoon into the hook, the cocoon into the hook. It's like a broken record over and over again. Smoothie would wait for contracts to hit those, trust that he was going to hit them, and then immediately follow up.
Yeah, and now it can be cocoon into the hook into a shockwave or an instant burst by anyone else on the C9 team.
Lots of tools to initiate on the side of Cloud9. And what you mentioned with not having peel tools and not really having the ability to deal with those sorts of threats on the side of Team Liquid, they really got to be looking out. They can't just go completely ham with all this damage and say, oh, well, it's going to work. Because if you get caught out, Cloud9 can punish.
Yeah, and the same is mostly true for Team Liquid. If they can get that initiation from Conquan, much less reliable, much less frequent, they too would have damage to take them down.
Loading in the Rift for game number 2. Cloud9 win this one. They find themselves the clean sweep. If Liquid win this one, we're going to game 3 and seeing if they can find their second match win of the split. Cloud9 really wanting to avoid that, though. Falling to 3 and 4 as the former second-place team from Spring Split would not be too good-looking for this team heading into what will soon be the middle of summer.
Absolutely, and especially, even though NA is on the top of their minds, in 2 weeks, C9 will be heading over to Berlin to take on Fnatic, G2, and UOL at Rift Rivals, so more practice coming their way.
Absolutely. That's something that all the teams heading to Rift Rivals got to have in the back of their minds, right? TSM, Cloud9, P1, all got to be thinking about that. They know that they've got to go up against their EU counterparts and opponents, so building up a nice record for themselves on local shores will boost the confidence going into that. Inori, though, keep your eyes on this guy. Remember, Reignover was subbed out for him to play the same champion.
Yep.
So
you never know how the draft is going to play out, though. Maybe they have planned for him to do something. But Rek'Sai, I've talked to a lot of junglers, and a lot of them think Rek'Sai's in a really strong spot right now. What's so interesting about it is I almost feel like Rek'Sai's even more early to mid-game centric than before. So it's very feast or famine. Your level 3 gank is so powerful. If you're not getting a kill after double buffing, being able to tunnel into someone, and then do 120 true damage at level 3 with your E once you fully stack it up, you're not getting the most out of that champion. You need to be able to take that advantage through to the mid-game. So really pay attention to where Nora uses his first gank.
Absolutely. Rek'Sai, been seeing a ton of it in solo queue recently, been seeing it locked in multiple pro circuits. Very strong champion, as Slushy and Jensen trading back and forth. Very early, level 1, just trying to go for that lane dominance. Lorlo, going to be scaring Impact back for now. This matchup, like we mentioned, cannot afford to go as poorly for Impact as it did in game number 1. He needs to stay a bit more relevant coming out of the laning phase. He did that first time around. Piglet, Conquan, Caitlyn, Zyra, such an oppressive lane from these two.
Yeah, it really puts a lot of pressure on Smoothie to land hooks and Sneaky to not take headshots or get hit by pretty much any grasping route, because if that does happen, you know, on top of all the poke that they're throwing at you with their superior ranges, they're going to chain it with a Caitlyn trap, get an extra headshot, and probably kill you or take you very close to death.
You know, one thing I also want to keep in mind watching Team Liquid as this second game goes on, now that we're past the first part of the series here, is this is a team, a lot of times you hear teams talk about, oh, we've got a guy on our team who, he's the one who keeps everybody's morale high. He's the cheerleader. He's the one who says, yeah, don't worry, guys, we got this.
Is that first gank?
But Nori now trying to make the play onto Jensen, who flashes away from it. That's exactly what we saw in the previous game as well, respecting the Rek'Sai flash potential, flashing ahead of time, getting himself out.
Yeah, not the best result for Nori right there. Does a creative route, skipping his blue buff, going all the way in to check Contractor's route, and then kind of guessing that he wouldn't be there. Getting both summoners out of Jensen does mean they can make a return gank, since it would be easier to tunnel in and still get the knockup. Even the ghost from Jensen will allow him to dodge that because he's so quick and good at dodging skill shots. Nori's still hunting for someone, though, not farming much. He's actually falling a little bit behind the curve in this game.
Not going to find any opportunity really onto Impact, who's so close to his turret. There's almost no chance of making that successfully happen, especially not with Kled's dismount, dropping the ability to target him there for a moment. And Nori will decide to do a little bit of counter jungling near the enemy Krugs to try and catch back up in terms of that pace of the game. But Contracts will be heading towards that area. Might just find him out.
Yeah, going for an early dive. They have a Nori up here. Impact is low, does have the dismount and the flash. How quick can Contracts get there to stop it?
Contract wants to close this distance fast enough if he can. Glad bear trap on a rope, going to be buying enough time for now. Nori drawing the turret aggro. Impact getting himself back, stays alive in that one. And Contracts is close enough, quick enough to make Team Liquid back away.
Yeah, this also buys time for Jensen to shove in and go back to base. That is a bunch of resources devoted for almost nothing. Impact was already low, can recall, pick up another item. This doesn't really help Team Liquid, and this allows C9 to also get some pressure down on the bottom side.
They didn't even blow Impact's flash.
They don't have to expend anything out of that game.
Anything of value whatsoever. Immediately comes back to lane, wanted to TP out, wanted to back and TP right back in anyway. Dorian's shield, Dorian's blade, and a refillable potion in his inventory means he's pretty set for future laning phase fights. Leveling up to 5, and Lorlo's just going to have to do the same thing, get back, TP back to lane.
Impact didn't even lose the cannon minion.
No, he lost nothing.
Lorlo missed the cannon minion because Impact teleported back in, and then Lorlo had to back off.
Contracts now in enemy territory, looking to maybe sniff out what Nori's up to. Fires off the Scryer's Bloom. He'll see that the Wolf Camp is up, but that's about all the information he's going to get. Nori traveling back to base. The 2 long swords in inventory means you're going to see a Tiamat start from him, as opposed to the straight Cinder Hulk rush that we got from Reignover last time.
Yeah, kind of a classic Rek'Sai thing. A lot of champions still decent with the Tiamat rush. More damage. More to a Nori style, you would think. Although Reignover used to do Warrior Enchantment all the time back when he played Rek'Sai over in the European LCS.
Do you think we'll see a Warrior Enchantment potentially from Nori this time around? Maybe go for some of that carry Rek'Sai?
Yeah, I hope so. I do feel like just the way the champion plays and the way you need to take over the game with it, I like seeing Warrior Black Cleaver and then trying to snowball. The problem is, though, you're up against a Thresh who can play you out of pretty much anything. Then you're also up against a Ghost mid laner who's going to be able to dodge your tunnel. So you really do have to try and take over the game early, I feel like, if you're going with this pick.
Well, still sitting on 0, 0, and 0. Now level 5, not where you want to be. Piglet and Conquan pretty much setting up shop with this lane pushed forward, doing exactly what Caitlyn and Zyra like to do. But the thing is, it's not like Sneaky and Smoothie are phased by it. Sneaky's got more farm than Piglet does.
Yeah, he's totally fine in this lane as of now. As long as they're not losing damage to their turret, and as long as Zyra's not getting very good vision on Contracts, they're generally okay. I think Contract snuck by, but so did the Nori, and everyone is spotted. That was actually a great ward by C9. It's really hard. You have to practice getting that ward over the wall to spot him out.
That was close on the Cocoon. Almost getting caught out there, and Nori would have taken a lot of burst from Contracts. Remember that when Rek'Sai goes for that early damage, she actually is surprisingly squishy and vulnerable to attack if you run into the enemy jungler at an inopportune spot. Lushi wanting to go for Jensen here. Lorlo trying to come in and make the moves happen. Tries to go for the flash into the stun. Jensen's still going to be chased down. First blood over to Lorlo. Up into the air goes Contracts. Going to take some more damage on the back end of that fight, but Liquid get the better of it.
Man, Jensen just had everything thrown at him. A 4 Summoner Spell gank from 3 people to get the kill on him. Still up in CS, still building towards his items, but worth it for Team Liquid. Watching this one more time, he's just pushed up and trying to pressure. Doesn't have wards on the other side. Oh, we're seeing the fight bottom.
Oh, but now the fight bottom side. Kongkwon taken very, very low. One more auto attack seals the deal. Sneaky grabbing the kill on that as Nori wants to make his way into this fight before Piglet gets taken down. If he can, Rain of Arrows not quite going to hit the mark just yet. Nori gets in there, scares him back. Piglet surviving by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, but Tio gets smashed in that 2v2. I mean, even Nori comes in at the end to burn the flash away from Sneaky. All 4 summoners burned with the kill going over to C9. The start of that, I think, is really going to be the teller of how that happened, but it must have been a hook by Smoothie. And that type of stuff, just not what you want out of Team Liquid when you're first picking the Caitlyn. They just start off with a little bit of poke, get a clean hook out of Kongkwon, and then honestly just auto-attack him. I mean, Sneaky's auto-attacking through exhaust. Piglet's just not there yet. Nice lantern by Smoothie at the end and a heal to keep him safe. And then even now, keeping Piglet in the box and managing to play him into it for that extra damage to force the flash away. A very well played 2v3 by C9's bot lane.
Piercing Arrow even got exhausted. Sneaky could have done a lot more damage there than what you saw. Good timing from Kongkwon, but not good enough to keep him alive.
Yeah, and I think the reason they won that by so much is Kongkwon just didn't get any plants out. That's the whole way you win extended trades is desire to get multiple plants going that assist you throughout the fight. That just didn't happen there, and it allowed Sneaky and Smoothie to sustain the damage and win the trade.
One thing I want to go ahead and point out, the first item fully completed from Sneaky did go for the Ninja Tabbing Rush. Helps him against the poke from the Caitlyn, and even though Corki does mostly magic damage now, the passive auto attack damage reduction on the Ninja Tabby still applies to him. So that is going to be effective against Corki, even though it doesn't give magic resistance. The passive still does the magic. Yeah, 4 people on Team Liquid do a lot of auto attack, so Ninja Tabby will work against all of them, regardless of the type of damage. The elbow with the quick rotation up does get first turret. Just so barely.
Good for them as well, especially when you have the death happen in that lane to then swap up and get it. Caught C9 barely by surprise.
What we were talking about with Impact, can't afford to fall as behind this time as he did last time. Still falling behind Lorlo's Renekton. 80 farm to 65. But remember, we have to keep eyes on Lorlo to get into those fights. He will use that lead better than he did in game number 1, Cloud9. Looking for Drake number 1 for himself. Will be a Cloud Drake, so extra rotational speed, out of combat movement. And that's not even going to be contested by Team Liquid.
Now they've taken all the Drakes this series. They had everything with Cloud last week. Get it this one. Not very important in the grand scheme of things.
But fun little tidbit anyway. They managed to pick that one up as Team Liquid goes for the Rift Herald of their own. Over the wall goes Smoothie. The flash is the play. Piglet going to be caught out. Change the corruption. Find their mark into a death sentence. Into a piercing arrow. More damage coming through. Contract's going to be finding Kongkwon on the other side of the fight. And that's 2 easily going away at Cloud9.
And that wasn't even fair.
No.
That was just...
No.
Team Liquid was trying to farm down in the bot lane by their lonesome. Look at the ward control that C9 has in that side of the jungle. That's why they could go with that play with so much exuberance. And they also knew that TL had just put 4 people up. Usually when you take a Cloud Drake, you're just telling the other jungler, please, please take Rift Herald. C9 knew all this stuff, so they're going to make a big push. Looks like they're going to trade interior turrets as well, but it will be 2 kills to 0 as long as they make it back to stop that Rift Herald from breaking their base.
Yep, Smoothie already getting back, making sure he moves as quickly towards that top side to stop that push as possible. Rift Herald just kind of going to be abandoned. They say, all right, good luck. Go ram your head into that next one and then do whatever you can. And that's about all that's going to happen. It'll get that initial headbutt, death sentence to drag it forward. And Smoothie's going to be doing some pest control, keeping this thing from putting too much more damage onto that.
Yeah, CC is effective on the Rift Herald, so he stops him from auto-attacking that guy.
Meanwhile,
very little damage taken by the inhibitor turret.
Slushy pushing up here in the mid lane, 94 CS to 105. Not nearly as bad of a CS situation as it was in game number 1. Keep him caught up.
Yeah, definitely did not get smashed. It helped a lot that they kept sending people at Jensen to slow down his farming pace, but much better than it was last year for sure.
Impact now hanging out in the bottom part of the map, trying to stay as relevant as he can, farm it up. He's got Ninja Tabby as well. Tiamat completed. Very typical Kled itemization. It's going to have to be soaking auto attack after auto attack from Piglet, who's got Conquan right behind him and feels as if he can push with impunity now, just going up against that Kled that he can zone away really easily.
Yeah, as close as it was, and with all the ganks that Team Liquid threw at Jensen, he was still up 12 CS at 10, so 2.5 below his average for the split.
For all that pressure.
For all that pressure, this guy is playing so well in his positions. Keeping him on his back foot. Now C9, since they've already fell the bottom turret, it's all on Smoothie and Contract to make roams.
Nice shockwave, nice cocoon, nice plays. Cloud9 picking up the enemy mid laner, and now they'll grab the turret as the prize. Hell of a way to make an impact there in that lane. Jensen starting things off, getting the shockwave at the edge of the range. Lucia didn't have a chance.
No, he really didn't, unless he was going to flash that shockwave, but even then, he most likely loses his turret, and the pressure that Team Liquid has is mostly non-existent right now. As we saw by the kill bottom lane by C9, where they could just flash over the wall, bring a lantern and kill with 4 people, or when 3 people just appear at mid lane. TL isn't able to match these plays because they're really far behind where C9's going next.
Contract's grabbing his own buffs, continuing to farm up 2-0 and 0 on this Elise. Really been helping his team make those plays this time around. Decides to repel up and over, landing onto the plant. Always nice as Elise to have one of those plants nearby. Provides an extra escape route that wouldn't otherwise be available. Keeps you totally out of danger. Cloud9 rotates back towards mid in time to keep their own turrets defended. Cloud9 has done a good job of out-objective playing their opponents.
Yeah, and there's still that gold differential in the top lane where Impact is down about 800 gold to Lorlo. Still not much has happened off of that. Lorlo isn't solo killing Impact. We really haven't seen them have an influence over the game as of yet. But that would be a place where you'd look for TL to try and make something happen, because they need Lorlo to draw attention away from C9 so that Piglet has a chance to scale. Because as of now, the Varus is way stronger than the Caitlyn. Blade of the Ruined King completed versus just a BF sword and the pickaxe. Not even close.
Sneaky also demonstrating earlier that he can hit those chains of corruption. That's one of those abilities that practically hit memes here in terms of how often people like to miss it. If you can manage to hit those every single time you need to, very, very potent team fighting tool, very potent pick tool as well to follow up after a cocoon or a hook or anything. You mentioned C9's pick power in the draft phase. What this team can do if they land even 1 CC, it just turns into this inescapable chain that'll allow them to find more plays after.
Yeah. I feel like Impact has to die here if Team Liquid want a chance in this game, because they just gave up so much to set up this game.
Impact trying to get himself out of this one. Turret aggro dropped by Anori, who pops the ulti, still looking to make the moves happen. Anori nearly killed. Impact getting himself away underneath the turret for now, firing off that bomb pistol yet again, almost able to remount, but can't do it. Anori getting the kill credit.
They still get the kill when they needed to, but that was so close. If he remounts, he might pick up a double kill. Without the Lorlo gets solo turret gold, and they still kill off Impact. What will C9 do on the other end? Because they have full.
Still at C9, trying to trade that tier 1 for this tier 2 if they can. Down to only caster minions left, but it doesn't look like Liquid will be able to make the defense. Cloud9 still gets a good thing out of the trade.
Yeah, Lorlo now 54 CS up on the other side, but that's exactly what it is a trade. C9 actually got 2 turrets off of that. If we track when they first made the roam into the outer turret on the top side of the map. So it's still a better trade for C9.
Even though they lost a person, thing is that guy's going to come back in a few seconds. That turret, I don't think it's going to be making a reappearance anytime soon here. Unless, of course, Team Liquid can take this one to a game number 3. But right now they are behind almost 2,000 gold, 16 minutes in. Cloud9 doing a good job building that early game advantage for themselves as we move towards the mid game now with Drake number 2 spawning. It is Ocean Drake, so not the biggest value, but still a target here for Cloud9. Pings coming out onto that area. Lorlo forced to dash away from Jensen, who with his 162 farm is still pretty scary.
Yeah, I think C9 will take this because they can, and mainly because they want the next one to spawn. I don't think Ocean Drake has that big of a benefit for anyone on either side. We're not seeing a very poke-heavy game here, and we don't have any super mana-hungry champions that will really benefit from the Ocean Drake. It will definitely help Orianna in extended sieges, but compared to every other Drake in this game, I feel like Ocean would be lowest priority. And the next one is Ocean.
Yep, we're going to see another Ocean, so game obviously not throwing us any bones there. They said, well, we didn't give you any Cloud Drakes in game number 1, so we're going to give you a bunch of Ocean Drakes in game number 2 just to equalize it a little bit. keep everybody away from fighting for all those with absolute indiscretion. Cloud9 still with a nice lead for themselves. 17 minutes in. 5 turrets at 17 minutes is actually pretty crazy.
Yeah, they've been heavily out-pressuring Team Liquid around the map. Lorlo has been setting up a lot of split pushing to try and get those plays, and that's why it was so important that him and Nori could pull off a successful dive onto Impact, because if they didn't get anything out of that, they would have just fallen extremely far behind, and that makes it even easier for C9 to force team fights, because I think what they're going to try and do fairly soon, it's still early on in the game, but when 20 minutes hits, they're going to have control of that side of the jungle and go for Baron.
Cloud9 having this advantage, even if the advantage isn't huge, and having this tempo in their favor, it's a good omen, because Team Liquid, we talked about how they're 1-5. None of the wins that they have found, even in single games, not just matches, have come from a time when they were behind. If Liquid's behind, they don't win. And Cloud9 has managed to put them into that loss condition.
Yeah, and C9's early games have actually not been that great for the past 8 months, so more good omens for C9.
In enemy territory now, clearing out some wards. Seeing that the red buff has spawned, but waiting for Contracts to work his way over there before they potentially try to secure that one, wanting to make sure they don't accidentally give it away to a random rocket or something similar. Piglet still just trying to farm, be effective on that Caitlyn. We know Caitlyn has to hit a multiple item spike before she really comes online, and sitting on nothing but Infinity Edge and Zerker Greaves means he's got a ways to go.
Exactly. You really want Static Shiv, and then on top of that, you usually want a rapid fire cannon. But with just the Static Shiv, I think it's pretty strong. They're going to have a lot of wave clear to try and defend their turrets with when you combo the Corki missile spam and also a Static Shiv Caitlyn. I hope that's his second item for the type of stall game the Team Liquid's going to have to play pretty soon.
Right. Plenty of options for Corki too. Corki's itemization though, very, very expensive. You see Corki that likes to buy, he likes to buy Trinity Force, he likes to buy Infinity Edge, he likes to buy Gunblade, he likes to buy all these different things that cost a crap ton of money, quite honestly. And when you're behind in the game, when you're 0-1-1 and 40 CS down, that takes a while to build that up.
It really does. A double dagger right there means he could probably go for rapid fire cannon or Static Shiv. Static Shiv is actually going to be pretty good on Corki now, since your magic penetration is going to synergize so well with the Static Shiv damage already. Just more all in to that one damage type, but let's see where he goes with that.
Unlucky package. That's always a problem with Corki. You get the package, you feel so strong, you're like, we can make a big play with this, and then if the opportunity doesn't present itself, you just have to shoot the thing off in the woods and wait another 5 minutes to get
You don't
your
have to shoot it off, but you want to.
Yeah, you got to at least use it. It feels even worse to just have the thing and let it expire. Slushy using the normal boring Valkyrie to get away from that cocoon coming out from Contracts. Remember, Baron is live now, 20 minutes into the game. Cloud9 controlling this top part of the jungle, this top part of the map, even though it's highly unlikely to see teams go for a super early Baron. It's always possible.
Yep. Well, it's always possible in a game that's also been this passive. I think it's been this passive because C9 ran out of things they could safely take. There's a lot of wave clear on Team Liquid. They've already killed 5 turrets, and they just killed the Drake. So they were waiting for the Baron to come up so they can start pressuring this spot.
Meanwhile, Lorlo decides to knock Impact right off a Skarl.
Yeah.
Popping his own ultimate to do so. And Impact is going to walk away, though. Not actually under threat of death from that ulti. Means that Lorlo is going to have a much lower threat threshold for the next minute and a half or so.
Yeah, and this split push is the fear for C9. The Kled does not have the same fallback pattern that the Galio had in game 1.
Ooh.
That's the chain.
That's the chain we know and love. Fired off a little bit to the side. Camera zoom in onto Sneaky. He'll get another chance, though. Plenty more chances as the game goes on, just not in the immediate future. Still 2-0-0 on the Varus, having a good showing so far. Piglet slightly beating him in terms of farm. You mentioned his game plan right now just being farm up, hold on, we scale. We all know the general solo queue strategy. You're behind in the game, everything seems bleak. That one guy on your team saying, just farm, we scale.
Yeah. Well, you also wonder if what we hear about Team Liquid's communication is true and Piglet is a shot caller. When you have a shot calling Caitlyn, what plays is going to set up other than I hit minions for 40 minutes, then we team fight. So he's not going to set up plays, he's not going to orchestrate plays, he's not going to be looking at the map. So other people have to be basically playing the early game while he farms up. And that can also speak to why we're seeing such a small amount of proactivity from Team Liquid right now, because these are 3 guys that are, I mean, this is a 5-man team that we haven't seen together in the LCS ever before. So the number of reps they'd have of being able to pull off really crisp plays is extremely low.
C9 pressuring towards the remaining tier 2 turret of their opponents. The last one left outside of the enemy base. They want to fix that pretty quick if they can. Dropping it low, but that wave clear you mentioned earlier between Caitlyn and Rocket Spam does a good job of keeping it alive.
Yeah, the wave clear is only going to get better from here on out as well, as they continue to build those items. The way you subvert that is by getting the Baron, which is, I think, what C9 wants to do, but they do not want to force it this early since they will still take a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's very tricky to do 22.5 minutes into the game. Next break is spawning here in 5 seconds. It's that ocean we talked about earlier, so at least they've got something else on the map to turn their attention towards, if only for a moment. The turret does fall there in the top side. Fight going to be breaking out in mid lane as Inori tries to go for the flash setup onto Sneaky. Can't quite find it.
And C9 really wants to flank this if they can. Kled's coming in from way downtown.
Wants to charge. Inori getting himself away. Impact still going for it. Not quite able to find it. C9 decides to back themselves off. Team Liquid heading towards the Ocean Drake. Cloud9 says, Baron, Baron, Baron. If they want to commit to this, we're going to commit to that.
Yeah, Lorlo can TP, and I feel like this is C9 is hoping to find a fight. They all stopped, and Ori didn't get him with Price Seeker.
Gets Chain of Corruption! It doesn't find the mark, but they're still able to jump onto Inori. Stranglethorn's down, Sneaky knocked up into the air, Burst coming through, Cloud9 in retreat. Pretty critical miss there on that ulti from Sneaky.
Everything else had lined up for it until he just shoots it to the left. That would most likely have been a kill on Inori. Now they've lost position on mid lane temporarily. No shockwave either.
Ooh,
that miss.
That was...
Because the setup was so good, too. It was all about the bait. It was stopping outside of Prey Seeker range, knowing they had the control ward. Now they go for Baron because they know Inori has teleported back, and they know Lorlo got taken low by Shockwave, but here is Conquan. He sees it.
Trying to just rush this down. Stranglethorn's got expended earlier. Remember, that's not available. Baron down below 1,000 HP, still looking to make the moves if they can. Contracts grabbing that secure as he goes over the wall, but Ace in the hole will find him midair.
3 quick deaths with that Baron rush. They knew Inori would be back in base, so they trusted their ability to get the smite secure, but Team Liquid just get a bunch out of this one. They should be able to get the turret in the mid lane, and they can also get the Ocean Drake out of this. So Baron, very questionable whether or not that's worth it.
Team Liquid will also grab that tier 1 turret there in the mid lane, bring their turret count up to 4. Cloud9 still has that enchantment on both Jensen and Sneaky, so they have the opportunity to use this to push with once they get the rest of their team back, but that's still 10 seconds away as Conquan throws some plants over the wall to help Inori out, taking that OG.
Yeah, C9 needs better skill shot accuracy if they're going to be making plays like that. They could have had a kill or two before this Baron, but they did not, so everyone on Team Liquid is free to run in. Jensen does zone out Conquan, but that's a big Renekton in the middle of a bunch of really low debuff people from Baron. Lorlo gets a good shot off.
Ooh. Exhaust onto Sneaky as he's pulled to safety by Smoothie. Lucia really wanting to go for him there, but can't quite find the kill. Rapid Fire Cannon, the second item that came out for him. Not the Static Shiv we were expecting, but a similar item at least. Yeah,
Rapid Fire Cannon still very good on the Corki, making sure you're landing the Trinity Force empowered auto attack after your initial spamming. So
Cloud9 there. Still has a 3,500 gold lead too. Still has 2 people with Baron. But they also still have a pretty difficult task, Jad. They've got to break into the base. There's no T2s. There's no freestanding money to just walk around and collect like you usually have the first time you grab the Baron.
Yeah, and Piglet is starting to reach that point where it gets pretty scary. And there's not a reliable way for C9 to get there. They haven't kept him down necessarily that much. They had that 1 kill onto him. But once he gets that Rapid Fire Cannon, there's also no super tank on C9 that can actually tank headshots without losing half of their health. So there is a timer on C9. I think that's why they so boldly went for that Baron, even though it suffered casualties. They really feel like they need to break the base on a push like this.
Here they go, pushing up if they can. But the trap line is there. It's so difficult to deal with Caitlyn in these siege scenarios because of how she can keep you completely at bay by lining those up.
Yeah, Caitlyn is absurd right now, especially with the way pro teams use it to stall out the game, because you pull a Caitlyn out in solo queue and your team is never going to have the discipline to sit behind the trap line and farm for 10 or 15 minutes. But that's what Team Liquid's trying to do right now, and pro teams are much more likely to be able to pull that off.
What'd you say, Jat? In that champion select, Piglet on Caitlyn, you play around that, that's how Team Liquid can find their wins. 80% kill participation, currently only on 20%, but He'll fix that up as the game goes on if they want to find their win. He's going to be absolutely critical to that success. Now switching that trap line down towards the bottom side. Baroned up minions, putting as much damage into that turret as they can. Sneaky going to be helping him out. Cocoon fired off, does not find a Nori. There goes the death sentence, though. That one could be big. The shockwave flashed away from. That's a pretty big cooldown to not have. C9's got to be careful without that one.
Yeah, and the lack of multiple Baron buffs really hurts here. They only have it on Jensen and Sneaky, so Impact can't split push with his own Baron minions. They do bait out the trap line bottom, so there's no traps mid, and they get a lot of damage on both turrets. Have yet to crack one. There it is.
There we go. Finally take that one down. The Cocoon sliding just barely off to the side, not finding its way onto Slushy. Jensen still really wanting to grab this bottom lane tier 3 if he can, but that trap line is just so damned effective at keeping anybody away.
Yeah, you could tell he wanted to step on one just to get enraged for the auto attack, but he thought better of it.
He knows.
It's like, how do we lose the game versus how do we win the game?
Right.
We lose the game if I step on this trap and die, and we can win the game in a lot of ways other than auto attacking his turret once. So he makes a smart call and backs away.
See, that's the problem with the Caitlyn and solo queue as well. You talk about how in those types of games, your teammates, if you're the Caitlyn, won't stand behind the trap and defend, but at the same time, your opponents will eventually just get too antsy and say, you know what, I can eat one cupcake. It's not really that big of a deal. And then you can turn things around. But Cloud9 showing discipline of their own, not willing to give in to that, but there's the issue right there on your screen with not having any tier 2s or tier 1s left to take when you grab the Baron. It's so hard to make a meaningful big Baron power play, only 769 gold.
Exactly, and Baron power play includes the 1,500 gold you get for killing the Baron. So they lost out on that trade for the most part. The 3 deaths they suffered, plus only the 1 turret they took in the mid lane, contribute to that very low power play.
Now they may just be waiting for the next Baron to find more opportunities. Remember that turret being down in mid does mean that if they want to force a fight on an open inhib, that opportunity is available. But the team doesn't seem super confident in going for that just yet. Only 3,500 gold lead, 29 minutes in. It's not incredible anymore. Remember, the same value of gold lead decreases in terms of what it means as the game goes on. 3,000 when you've got 7K versus 10K, that's a bunch. 3,000 when you're comparing 49 to 52 isn't quite as big.
Yeah, it's almost meaningless, if we're being completely honest. The only meaningful advantage I feel like will be Jensen, because if he lands a shockwave on a squishy target, he can end the game on his own. Yeah. Outside of that, it's really all about the strength that Piglet is going to have in these games. And you can see the minions are never making it anywhere close to those turrets or even the inhibitors. Until this Baron comes up again in 1 minute and 30 seconds.
And I want to dial back to something you mentioned in game 1, talking about how normally you see the 10 CS a minute mark as being the goal for most pros in the LCS. And again, Jensen going above and beyond that 314 farm, 30 minutes into the game, constantly keeping that economy topped off. Rabadon's Death Cap, Leandri's Torment, Morello Nomicon, that shockwave finds its way onto Piglet or onto Slushy. They're just completely out of the equation.
Yeah, Jensen is playing at such a high level, but he will actually be the one, I feel like, that needs to carry this game if they are to win, because there's a lot of things trending over towards Team Liquid. Even though they haven't found much success on the split, they still have the split pushing advantage with Lorlo. He now has a Gargoyle Stone Plate to make his team fighting a little bit more effective and not able to get fully bursted out. And they have enough wave clear to keep C9 away from their base, and potentially a better late game with the Caitlyn hitting 5 and 6 items. So a lot of things they can do to actually pull themselves back in this game. It'll be hard to actually get the win, but they can definitely prolong this for a very long time.
It's always possible. You can't rule things completely out, not with this only being the difference between these two teams right now. Sneaky pushing in the top side, Baron alive in 15 seconds. Another Ocean Drake just coming alive now too. 3 Oceans. It's just because we called him bad. If we would have said that was the best Drake in the game, we would have got Infernals.
They won't care about Ocean. It's like, oh, you won't care about Ocean?
So you're going to care about Ocean today. Well, I guess we're going to be caring about Ocean for now. Liquid does have one of them. Cloud9 has one of them. That means somebody's going to have to get the better of the Ocean Drake reputation here. As Lorlo and Impact into this 1v1 down in the bottom part of the map. Titanic Hydra, Black Cleaver, Gargoyle Stoneplate versus Titanic Hydra, Black Cleaver, and Gargoyle Stoneplate. Bruisers, pretty similar flavors these days. Guardian Angel being prepped on Lorlo's Renekton as well, making sure that he can jump into these team fights with total impunity. Not worry about getting himself into a compromising spot if he'll just come back afterwards and focus on maximizing that damage against targets like Sneaky and Jensen. Contracts, who's not exceptionally tanky yet. Went for the Leandri's Torment, more of a bruiser type.
It's all about Baron. They're in there. Nori should see something. They still have wards inside. There's one.
Cloud9 going for it, but backing away. Doesn't want to risk the 50-50. Knows that going the way of Team Liquid could be disastrous at this point.
So they've also given up control in mid lane right here, which is again advantage Team Liquid. They're going right back on it though. Team Liquid would have to double back, and they have no indicator to show that other than the fact that C9 is still missing. Now, at this point, you say, okay, they must still be on it. And it might be too late. Nori's gonna go.
He's trying to buy time over the wall, and Nori goes, but he can't quite find the objective. Instead, he's gonna find himself a rather swift death, except for the fact that he's able to use the ulti, similar to what Reignover did, to dodge the aggro, stay alive. Lorlo in the pit, Cloud9 backing away. They will not be killed off as they were the first time they found Baron, and they managed to find the moves.
Yeah, and Inori did not die there because he's gone so tanky with the Gargoyle Stone Plate and the Cinder Hulk. So they can't push him down through the Stone Plate. This time, though, C9 has Baron on all 5 people. This Mountain Drake, not going to be too important as Team Liquid isn't really getting poked out to prevent them from defending these turrets, but this will disempower the Elder Dragon if C9 still has map pressure at that point in the game.
Just like the first Baron, Team Liquid takes an Ocean Drake after this second one from Cloud9, so that's going to be 2 Oceans for them. A little bit of extra bonus regeneration, but as you mentioned, not really the most important thing out there. Cloud9, they've got the Baron push coming. The charge is sounded. The horn is roaring, and the inhibitor is under siege. Cloud9 take it down. They destroy inhibitor number 1, moving down to inhibitor turret number 2. It's so low that they don't even care about the minions. They will brute force this one away, dropping a control ward.
Yeah. Not want to overstay, though. Trying to play this one carefully. They don't want to get flanked or lose the game here, but they do have the advantage.
Still wanting to go for inhib number 2. Quite a big difference between one inhibitor and 2 of them. Means you can just siege that final remaining lane and really just put out so much pressure. It's nigh impossible to fend it off even with a Caitlyn.
Yeah, very difficult. I think if you're going to have a chance, it would be with the double marking team composition they have. With the Corki and the Caitlyn both able to shred some of these down. The only thing you'd want is a Sivir somewhere in there to make it a little bit easier, but agreed there, C9 have an opportunity to move over to that lane, wait for the super minis to crash down, and also I think they're going to Baron empower one of the waves. So I don't actually think Impact will stay with the team too much. I'm not expecting hard engages from C9 for these fights.
Impact is just hanging out between those other 2 lanes, ready to enchant either wave that he can to give it that extra bit of pushing power. Falling back for now, though, waiting for the rest of Cloud9 to push this wave up. Pay attention to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is how you run the split push. This is how you make this happen. You wait for everybody to get in position, then mount the attack in 2 different places at the same time.
Team Liquid also have to find a place to make their stand. These traps do a great job of preventing them from being able to hit this turret, so it's all about whether C9 can find a way into the base to threaten behind the trap line. Watch Jensen and see if anyone on TL can initiate on him. The hard initiation from Team Liquid is very low here, so it's why it's more safe for Jensen to be in this spot.
Practically impossible to catch him out at this point in time. Impact trying to soak the ace in the hole, but it can't even break Jensen's shield if we're being honest. Lorlo and Reignover both without flashes means that Jensen feels incredibly safe right now. Inori going to be soaking the shockwave just enough to buy time for Cloud9 to break this final inhibitor turret past that trap line.
Gotta say, Contract's lost 75% of his health breaking that tramp line because he got shots in. Conquan's in though.
Conquan, 75% is not 100. He's out of the game. 45 seconds until he's back in this one. Contract's taken low. Repels up, doesn't have anywhere to land. Comes down, barely getting himself away with the flash. The shield from Jensen, making sure that he stays alive. Impact knocked off a Scarl too, just trying to deal with some of those wards, but says it's not worth it, gets himself out. 1 Nexus turret falls from minion pressure alone, and with 3 inhibitors down, chances are looking slim for Team Liquid.
Yeah, 1 turret remaining and half an inhibitor.
Half an inhibitor, my bad. 2.5 inhibitors down. One still
very
left.
Close. And the Baron buff has expired, but the super minions will continue to pour through. So the same strategy that C9 used there is something I feel like they have to employ in order to get the 3rd one. The Caitlyn adds another element to being able to siege the base or not. Got to be very careful and be willing to step on those traps, which is very, very hard to do. But Pipit's not quite there. He doesn't have enough lifesteal. He doesn't have a Last Whisper yet, so that Chain Vest could be big, and now they're going.
Charge is sounded. Impact's there on the front lines. Now they're able to catch out Inori. Cocoons into death sentences, into Jensen's damage. Means there's no way out for him. Impact likely going to be brought down here as well, but problem is, he's got Guardian Angel to bring him right back to life. The Lantern is thrown out, but the trap is there. Sneaky taking down the inhibitor as Slushie takes down Impact. It's a 4 versus 4. Lorlo having to dash himself away. Cloud9 wants to put the final nails in the coffin here. Shockwave will find no one. Big cooldown to have expended. Jensen gonna be tracked with the ace in the hole. Can't even break the shield. Slushie is dead, and that will likely seal the deal. Lorlo losing Guardian Angel. Cloud9 still looking to make this happen. A nicely timed death sentence. Smoothie is doing what needs to be done on these hook-based champions today. Jensen, Sneaky, Smoothie, Contracts, all still alive. Piglet will not stay the same. As Conquant's caught out, brought down a double kill for Jensen. And ladies and gentlemen, Cloud9 will 2-0 Team Liquid.
Yeah, you got to see the difficulty of closing against that level of wave clear, but C9 still knew how to do it. They never went too aggressive. No one really died trying to break the trap line. They secured 2 Barons and slowly but surely found the victory.
Even though there were a couple missed chains of corruption, a couple opportunities that may not have been maximized, especially due to what we saw happen in the Baron pit, with Team Liquid being able to find the pickups after that. Cloud9 played it slow and steady enough to find themselves a victory. And the damage from Jensen, again, we talked in game number 1. Man, he did a lot. He put so much damage into these fights. Game number 2 is the same story.
Yeah, Jensen continuing to play like the best mid laner in the North American LCS this split. The CSDs are out of control, but the game is about so much more than laning, and Jensen is doing that as well. Even towards the end of that game when they were trying to close, the Shockwave hit nothing, but it forced Piglet's flash. Yeah. And then towards the end of it, he actually just 1v1'd the Caitlyn. So Caitlyn was trying to get him, he landed the QW, repositioned his Q, and Piglet was dead. So Jensen did everything he needed to do in both of these games. If you sum them together, was more than 200 CS up onto Slushie, and was a huge part in C9's victories.
Jensen definitely contributing to this team, doing what they need to do to once again be a top contender in the NA LCS. But at the same time, you can't do it alone. One man does not make a team, and the rest of this team work together. Contracts, again, hitting those cocoons all over the place. Impact, although he didn't have the laning performance we were hoping for him to have, he still stayed relevant. He still had an effect in the game.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it was the expected result for C9. The problems that they potentially had coming into the day and the strengths that they have did stay mostly the same. They played around mid lane and bottom lane. Impact was tasked with surviving. He did a decent job at it and was able to have an overall influence on the game. And TL played through top lane like they usually do and haven't been able to find victories that way. So we didn't actually get much that varied from the expectations, but it's still good for C9 to pick up the victory.
Right, C9 sitting at 4-3 now, going into that positive territory instead of neutral, sitting on the 3-3 mark. This is the kind of upward trajectory that this team needs to have if they truly want to be considered, hey, we are one of the best teams. We are in contention for #1 at the end of summer split. Because right now, there is kind of a debate between it. You've got some people saying, yeah, this is a top team. They're still looking really good. They had a rough start. Other people saying, no, they're sitting on 3-3. How can you call that a top team?
Yes, so much about this C9 team is going towards the future. They've won the regular season before. They know how to play these games. It's about preparing for the big moments.
Well, for a deeper dive on the game, let's go ahead and hand things off to Dash and Mark.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. C9 with a 2-0 victory over Team Liquid today. And in particular, what I want to look at here is the Team Liquid roster changes that have been made and how these guys are kind of interchanging as they made the announcement that they're very strongly moving towards that full 10-man roster where at any given moment people can be subbed in and out for different looks till they find maybe the right occasion. And looking at Slushie in the mid lane here against Jensen, obviously he's got his work cut out for him. All 3 of the Danish mid laners here in North America have just been trouncing people left and right. So already a tough matchup for him to be coming in to, but at least here in game 2 as compared to game 1, we saw the CS differential a lot closer together than it was in the previous game.
Yeah, and a part of that comes down to the matchup. Obviously, Lucian Talia heavily favors Lucian. This time around, Corki Orianna traditionally was considered a Corki favorite matchup. Maybe not as strong as it used to be with some of the changes that came in previously to like his missile harass and stuff that happened at 6.
Yep.
Either way, much better showing out of him, but still down about 30 CS at 15. And C9 was putting attention towards the mid lane. They made a couple roams. They finally broke the turret with a gank attempt that came in. And it's just, like you said, a tough spot to be in for Slushie. I would argue Jensen's the best mid laner in the league right now, absolutely smashing in lane and out of lane. So, you know, you can't draw too many conclusions when your substitute comes in like this. And I think The bigger thing to look at is kind of the idea of the swaps overall.
Right. Well, and then with that, we saw 2 different junglers today. We see Rainover, we see Inori, both of them playing Rek'Sai. I mean, Rek'Sai back in the meta, a lot of people would point to Rainover and say, okay, isn't this his time, his resurgence to come back in and start, reclaiming his title as the best jungler in NA?
You would like to think so, but you're playing this new Rek'Sai tank Rek'Sai, which is just not the right way to play. You can't play Cinder Hulk, you can't play Courage the Colossus, or you got to go, with a more aggressive one.
Fervor and a warrior enchant.
Yeah, you got to go the aggro. I'm going to kill some people, especially because in the first game he did have some good early moves to get some leads, but you can't push it quite as hard as you can when a Rek'Sai is in your face and you face check him, he knocks you up, and then you're almost dead.
Right.
You can't do that with the Cinder Hulk build. Either way, the big thing though is, Nori comes in, looks okay, but Slushy stays in the mid lane, and you got to start finding some ways for this to actually get some more firepower into the roster with these kind of changes.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Again, if we're looking at the roster changes as a whole, a lot of people will point to, okay, well, hey, Rainover's out. Technically, what that means is you've opened up an import slot. And so, if in the mid lane, all you're doing is exchanging Golden Goo for Slushy, and we can get more into the nitty-gritty of like whether or not that is an upgrade or more of a side grade, a lot of people would say, all right, granted, there's not much homegrown NA mid lane talent that you can pull from. Well, you have an opened import slot. There is room for large upgrades to be made in that mid lane still.
And I understand it's difficult in the middle of a season to go pull someone, potentially out of Korea
They can't
or
go
Europe.
convince Faker to jump ship?
That might be a little bit of a tough argument
right
to make.
Okay.
But, there's someone locally who I believe is teamless right now in Phoenix, someone who's been in your org, who, last time we saw him in the Challenger Series and Promotion Tournament looked really strong. And maybe you can find a roster that works if you brought him in with
Inori Phoenix would look pretty good.
Yeah, and then you have Piglet as well. And so it's this kind of thing where, you're swapping Rainover out for Inori, which I think many, including myself, would argue is a slight downgrade right now, but you're not doing anything to improve it with the extra kind of room you've given yourself to work by opening up an import slot.
To put fake numbers to it, if you were downgrading from a 7 to a 6 out of 10 in the jungle, and then in the mid lane, all you're doing is moving from a 5 to a 5, then all you've done is lowered your team score by 1. And so what we're saying here is that if you are going to make a downgrade or a concession in one area, you need to look to take advantages somewhere else. But I don't want to get too hyper-focused on the roster because, again, they've made the announcement. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks in terms of the evolution of that roster and who they end up sticking with.
We know they're not afraid of signing people.
But what I will say is kind of a prevailing theme is that even in this game, there were multiple opportunities for Team Liquid to perhaps play more aggressively. And at this point, I almost feel like there's a level of mental fragility where they're unwilling to take risks to actually win the game. And again, we've creeped back into that playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win.
Right. There was a moment in the mid game there where C9 tried to find a pick. They might have overextended into a Zyra ultimate, and I think it was Sneaky who was going to get knocked up, and Slushy and Piglet didn't really go and try and jump on that and potentially find a kill. And off the back of that skirmish, C9 just went right to Baron, still relatively low.
At like 23 minutes, they're tanking a Baron in your face with no armor.
And you got Corky Poke, you got Zyra, you have Caitlyn, you have so much range to threaten them off that Baron or potentially kill them if they hard commit to it. And they did, but it was just a little bit too late because they do seem to have this little bit of timidness that they play with.
Right, it was from memory, it was about 3 kills being picked up, but the Baron's still going over to C9. If they had chosen to act a little bit more aggressively sooner, perhaps they ace them, even get the Baron, who's to say? But I think that's kind of where, at times, this roster this team, this split, no matter what the roster is, has failed, is in their split-second decision-making and willingness to kind of make plays and take a shot at the victory. Now, while we talk about this series, we have to mention Jensen in the mid lane.
Oh, yeah.
Picking up player of the game for Cloud9. This guy has been an absolute monster throughout the split. Again, his CSDs in every matchup.
Flame Horizon in game 1 in the mid lane? What? Who does that?
Well, right, exactly. But my one fear here is that C9 is beginning to rely too heavily on Jensen. So when we talk about having a diverse playbook, having multiple paths to victory, it's looking more and more like Cloud9 is tunneling on Jensen needing to get ahead and be the playmaker for the team.
I think you see there's some synergy around the bot lane. C9 made a couple ganks around there with Smoothie being able to be on some playmakers, but the top side of the map has looked a little bit of exploitable, with Impact getting CS deficits pretty frequently, and he still plays.
He did deal with a fair amount of focus in this game, to be fair, and he avoided a lot of turret dives and ganks quite well. But yes, to your point, even then, it's the deficit is there.
Right, and the leads almost exclusively come through Jensen. And when you stack him up against some of the other top teams in the league, like let's say a TSM or even a CLG with Huhi and Bjergsen, you might not get those same kind of massive advantages. And then what else does your team do well? We're still kind of out in the woods about what C9 is going to do.
Right, that's the key, right? Okay, great, you're averaging like 20 CS up at 10 minutes in the mid lane. But what happens when you go up against Bjergsen, who's also averaging 15 up, right? And it's like, well, now all of a sudden, one of you is not averaging 15 CS up at 10 minutes, and then where does C9 go if Jensen isn't as successful? So we'll be looking in future weeks to see how they develop around him in the mid lane, and you know, whether or not Ray and Impact continue to swap out till they find the solution there. We'll see.
Yeah, and it's the kind of case where, you know, having a style isn't the problem. Obviously, if you have your preferred way of playing the game, and Jensen is a very viable win condition. At no point are we saying, oh, don't play around Jensen.
No, Jensen's ahead. Let the dude carry.
Yeah, exactly.
Let him carry the game.
But you need to be able to do a couple other things, and that's one of the things you can say about TSM is sometimes, Hauntzer's the guy, which we kind of saw in their series today, where he received a lot of jungle attention after Bjergsen kind of stabilized his lane, and that's kind of the stuff that we wish we saw more out of C9, where Jensen's got a lead, great. Can we stop going mid and maybe do something else with it? Or if Jensen's even, which isn't the case very often, go somewhere else.
And so where do you look? Who specifically on the team are you looking to for Cloud9's case to step up alongside Jensen? Are you looking at the playmakers of the jungler and the support, or are you actually looking at the damage dealers and the carry potential out of the top in the ADC?
I would love for it to be Ray. He comes in, you swap up your chant pool a little bit. Now you're playing the Kleds and all this aggressive stuff, and you're diving and doing all this crazy playmaking. But it doesn't feel like C9 really has the same level of synergy when he's in, and so I think it is going to end up falling more on Smoothie, assuming this meta sticks in the bot lane, having to build synergy with contracts that they can reliably turn ganks, especially at 6 when the ultimates come online and they're playing things like Ashe and Thresh and Rakan, being able to really, really set up these big bot lane plays, which open up a lot of games.
Right, it's been very exciting to watch him play in this support meta, of course. We have multiple playmaking supports. The likes of Ole and Aframu at this point has made for a very interesting bot lane meta. My final question to you would be back towards Team Liquid. Once again, in the bot lane, we have Piglet, who's been a top performer alongside the rest of the teams. Now that we have that AD carry meta kind of shifting to involve back towards the Jins, even the Tristanas that we've seen, perhaps a more diverse pool, do you feel like this opens any options for them as a squad?
It might. I think, Jin was a champion. He played a little bit, but not quite what you would consider the signature champion of Piglet. You would think, the Kog'Maws, the Twitches, like you even said, the Tristanas. And with that one coming back, maybe you start playing more of that style, but you do really need to find something, because utility AD carry has never really been his forte, and it's something he's capable of playing. But when your team is struggling to find wins just seemingly because your mid laners fall behind, your bot lane really, really needs to step up. And Jin is not the kind of carry that's always going to do that unless, it's Arrow, and he's pretty much the only one we've really seen do that.
Yep, Team Liquid moving to 1-6, while Cloud9 moves to 4-3 on the week. That's going to do it for NALCS 1, so we're going to toss you guys over to NALCS 2, where Dignitas and Immortals are in champion select heading into Game 2. Enjoy.
Elsewhere, right? They win another play.